Let's talk about breath meditation, but forget what you think you know. We're going to look at this not as some old, dusty ritual, but as a practical, hands-on user manual for your mind.
Sound familiar? You sit down, you try to focus on your breath, and your mind is just everywhere. You think you're supposed to have this perfectly blank, empty slate, and when you don't, it just feels like you're failing at it. But what if that whole idea is just wrong?
So, the Buddha's original instructions on breath meditation have 16 steps. And for centuries, people have treated them like a ladder you have to climb one step after another, from 1 to 16. You know, a really rigid path that honestly just leads to a lot of frustration.
But here's the game-changing idea. What if we stop seeing it as a rigid path and start seeing it for what it really is? A flexible diagnostic toolkit. It's like a checklist you can use to figure out what's actually going on in your mind and body, and then know exactly what to do when you feel stuck.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll unpack how this all works as a user manual. Then, we'll get into how to troubleshoot your breath when it gets weird. After that, we'll see how you can actually get your mind on board. And finally, we'll talk about the ultimate payoff of this whole practice.
So how do we actually turn these ancient steps into a modern, practical guide? Well, it all starts with understanding how they're structured.
The 16 steps aren't just some long random list. No, they're actually neatly organized into 4 groups of 4, and each of these groups is called a tetrad.
And that number, 4, is the absolute key to the whole thing. The entire system is built around 4 fundamental areas of your experience, right here, right now.
So those 4 groups focus on the body, feelings, the mind, and these things called mental qualities. Now here's the most important part. The first 3, body, feelings, and mind, are not sequential steps. They're all happening at the same time. They're your checklist for what needs attention in this very moment.
All right, let's see how this actually works. We'll start with the most common hurdle for pretty much everyone, the body and the breath itself.
Oh man, this is such a classic problem. You sit down to focus on the breath, and all of a sudden, you get a tension headache, or your breathing feels tight and really uncomfortable. The first instinct is to just try and power through it, right? But this toolkit gives us a much, much smarter way to handle it. And the solution is kind of brilliant. It's not about forcing your breath to change, it's about changing your perception of it. The picture you hold in your mind directly, and I mean directly, impacts how the breath feels in your body.
Now, check out how creative these solutions are. Instead of fighting it, you can just imagine the breath gently bathing your entire body. Or, and this one is my favorite, for headaches, picture a ball of butter on your head. And with each breath, it just gently melts down, releasing all that tension. See? You're using your own imagination to fix a physical problem. It's amazing.
Okay, but what about the total opposite problem? What happens when your breath gets so calm and subtle that you start, getting sleepy, or your mind starts drifting off into space?
Well, the answer is to get active. You don't have to just sit there and accept it. You can actually experiment with more energizing breathing patterns, like, say, a longer inhale and a shorter, sharper exhale, to wake yourself up and bring your focus right back. This isn't a passive thing. You're actively managing your own state.
All right, so we've troubleshooted the body. But let's be real. What about the bigger challenge? What do you do when your mind is just not having it, when it absolutely refuses to settle down?
Well, you can't just order your mind to concentrate. It doesn't work like that. There's a sequence, a path. It starts with conviction, genuinely believing that this practice is a good thing to do. That conviction then creates a feeling of gladness or joy. And it's that feeling of gladness that allows the mind to finally settle into concentration.
So the crucial point here is learning how to talk yourself into it. You got to be your own cheerleader. Remind yourself what a privilege it is to even have this time. You're not just sitting here doing nothing. You are actively creating a peaceful present moment, and you're building skills that will serve you for the rest of your life.
And this slide just illustrates why this is so important. The source material tells a story about these students who, when they were asked to sing a folk song, couldn't remember any. All they could come up with were commercial jingles from TV. It really makes you ask, what are we filling our minds with? Because whatever we fill it with is what's going to be there for us when we really need it.
And this gets really profound when you think about getting older. Our short-term memory starts to fade, but our long-term memory often becomes even more active. So the things we intentionally fill our minds with now, the wise reminders, the good qualities, that's what's going to bubble up to the surface and support us then.
So what is this all for? I mean, really, what's the ultimate long-term payoff for all this mental training?
Every single moment you practice, you're sharpening these essential life skills: mindfulness, concentration, and discernment.
And discernment is way more than just passively noticing things. It's an active skill. It's seeing what's helpful versus what's harmful for your mind, and then deliberately choosing to grow the good stuff.
And these are not just abstract skills for meditation. No way. They are the exact tools your mind is going to need to navigate the inevitable challenges of life. They're what will keep you steady when aging, illness, and eventually death arrive.
This quote from the source really just says it all. We're taking something that's always happening anyway, our breath, and we're turning it into a profound skill. We are training our minds so that when that final breath comes, it has what it needs, so it won't be blown away by it all.
So in the end, this isn't about some distant future goal or some abstract philosophy. Your breath is here. It's happening in this very moment. The only real question left is, how are you going to use it?